we are understanding that several conversations are going on back in Blighty about who he may be allowed to see while he's there.
For years, Kate Middleton was the one person quietly holding this fractured family together, and now, according to those close to her, she has simply stopped trying. That single decision, insiders suggest, has left Harry facing the one outcome he never actually prepared himself for. Not rejection from the king, not distance from William, but the loss of the one person who always seemed willing to build the bridge back to him. Sources close to the Wales household describe a woman who spent years quietly encouraging reconciliation behind the scenes, someone who reportedly believed family mattered more than the headlines tearing it apart. And according to those familiar with the matter, that belief has finally run out.
However, she is eager to try and take at least a little step towards mending the ongoing rift between the two brothers.
For a long time, speculation swirled that Kate was the soft voice in William's ear, gently pushing him toward some version of peace with his brother. Insiders claim she never wanted a dramatic reunion, nothing performative, just enough contact to keep the door from closing completely. But reportedly, something shifted after Harry's most recent visit to the UK. Sources close to the family suggest the constant cycle of tension, secrecy, and public scrutiny surrounding every single interaction finally became too much, even for someone as composed and private as Kate. What makes this so significant isn't simply that Kate stepped back. It's reportedly the fact that William, according to insiders, hasn't said a single word to change her mind. For years, those close to the Prince of Wales suggest Kate was the one gentle counterbalance to William's hardened stance toward his brother, the one person capable of softening a wound that never seemed to heal on its own. And now, sources claim, William isn't pushing back against her withdrawal at all. If anything, insiders suggest he's relieved. That's the part of this story that should stop you in your tracks.
William is understood to be very cautious about his interactions with Harry and is
because if the one person quietly working toward reconciliation has walked away and the person she was working on behalf of isn't trying to stop her, what does that actually say about where this family truly stands behind closed doors? For Harry, sources suggest this isn't just disappointing, it's reportedly devastating in a way the public conversation hasn't fully captured. Insiders close to him claim he always believed, even during the worst years of public fallout, that Kate was quietly in his corner, someone who understood him beyond the headlines and the memoir controversies. Now, according to those familiar with the situation, that belief has been shattered. Sources suggest Harry reportedly reached out following his most recent UK visit, hoping for some sign that things could still shift, some small gesture that the door hadn't fully closed. What he got instead, insiders claim, was near silence. A response so measured and distant that it reportedly confirmed what he had been trying not to believe for months. This wasn't Kate being busy. This wasn't Kate protecting her health after everything she's already endured. According to sources close to the family, this was Kate making a deliberate choice. And that choice, insiders suggest, has consequences far beyond one strained relationship. Because if Kate truly is stepping back from the role she quietly played for years, the question becomes who, if anyone, is left standing between Harry and a permanent, unbridgeable silence with his brother. Sources close to the family suggest there may not be an easy answer. What reportedly happens next, according to those familiar with the matter, could determine whether this rift becomes something temporary the family eventually works through or something none of them ever fully recovers from. Just when Harry thought he understood how bad things had gotten, a new detail reportedly surfaced that made the silence from Kate feel even heavier. According to insiders close to the family, it wasn't just that she had stepped back from encouraging reconciliation. Sources suggest she had also stopped defending Harry in private conversations within the Wales household, something she had reportedly done consistently for years, even when it meant gently pushing back against William's own frustration. For a long time, according to those familiar with the family dynamic, Kate occupied a strange and difficult position. She wasn't simply William's wife standing loyally behind him. Insiders suggest she often served as the quiet voice of nuance in a household where anger toward Harry had become almost second nature. Sources close to the family claim she would remind William, gently and privately, that Harry was still his brother, still the man who once stood beside him at his own wedding, still someone worth understanding even during the ugliest years of public accusation and memoir revelations. That role, according to insiders, wasn't easy, and reportedly, it came at a personal cost to Kate that few people outside the family ever fully appreciated. Now, sources suggest, that voice has gone quiet, and the timing is what's raising the most questions. According to those close to the situation, Kate's shift didn't happen gradually. It reportedly came almost immediately following renewed public scrutiny surrounding her own health journey, scrutiny that insiders claim reignited old frustrations about how the Sussexes' choices, past interviews, and public commentary continued to shape the family narrative even years later. Sources close to the family suggest Kate quietly reached a breaking point, one she never expressed publicly, but one that reportedly changed how she approaches every conversation involving Harry from that point forward. What's making this even more complicated, according to insiders, is how William has responded, or rather, how he hasn't. Sources suggest that in the past, even during his coldest periods with Harry, William would occasionally soften slightly when Kate raised the subject, not enough for reconciliation, but enough to keep some thread of possibility alive. Now, according to those familiar with the matter, that thread appears to have been quietly cut, and reportedly, William hasn't shown any sign of wanting to pick it back up. Insiders close to the Wales household describe a subtle but unmistakable shift in tone at home. Sources suggest Harry's name reportedly comes up far less often now, not out of active hostility, but out of what one insider described as a kind of quiet finality, as if the subject has simply been closed. For a family that has spent years locked in a very public, very painful cycle of accusation and rebuttal, insiders suggest this silence might actually be more telling than any dramatic clash ever could be. For Harry, according to sources close to him, this development reportedly landed harder than any public criticism ever has. Insiders suggest he had always drawn a strange kind of comfort from believing Kate saw him differently than the rest of the family did, that she understood the version of him that existed before the interviews, before the memoir, before everything became a headline. Losing that, according to those familiar with his mindset, feels less like losing an ally and more like losing the last person who remembered who he used to be. And that's what makes what comes next so uncertain. Sources suggest a decision now sits squarely in front of Harry, one he's reportedly been avoiding for weeks, whether to try one more time to reach out directly to Kate, risking further rejection, or to quietly accept that this particular door, unlike so many others in this family's complicated history, might not simply be closed, but permanently sealed. And then, according to insiders close to the family, Harry reportedly did exactly what everyone feared he might. He reached out to Kate directly, one final time, and what came back wasn't silence. It was something far more final. Sources suggest Kate responded briefly and carefully, making clear that while she still cared about him as family, she was no longer willing to be caught in the middle of a conflict that reportedly kept resurfacing no matter how many times it seemed resolved. According to those familiar with the exchange, she reportedly asked for time. Real time, with no set date attached, a request that insiders suggest felt less like a pause and more like an ending dressed up as one. That vagueness, according to sources close to Harry, was almost worse than a flat refusal. Insiders suggest he had spent weeks preparing for rejection, but not for an open-ended silence with no timeline attached, nothing to count down to, nothing to hope toward. Reportedly, this left him in a strange limbo, still technically part of the family, but functionally cut off from the one relationship that had quietly sustained him through years of public fallout. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the family, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It really helps this channel keep bringing you these stories. Now back to what happened next. According to insiders, it was around this point that Princess Anne reportedly stepped into the picture, not publicly and not with any fanfare, but in a quiet, direct conversation with William that sources close to the family describe as blunt, in a way only Anne has ever really been within this household. Insiders suggest Anne has long occupied a unique position in the family, respected by nearly everyone, rarely involved in the emotional back and forth between the brothers, but reportedly unwilling to watch the family fracture further without at least saying something. Sources claim Anne didn't ask William to forgive Harry, and she reportedly didn't ask Kate to change her mind either. According to those familiar with the conversation, her concern was reportedly more practical, more grounded in what this ongoing silence was doing to the family's public image, and, more importantly, to Charles, whose health remained a constant, unspoken pressure hanging over every decision being made. Insiders suggest Anne reportedly reminded William that whatever personal grievances existed, the family didn't have unlimited time to keep circling the same unresolved pain. According to sources close to the family, that conversation reportedly landed differently than anything Kate had said. Insiders suggest William has always respected Anne's directness, her refusal to sugarcoat things, and reportedly, hearing it from her carried a weight that the quieter, more private appeals from Kate hadn't quite managed to carry on their own. Sources suggest William didn't respond immediately, but according to those familiar with the matter, something in his posture on the issue reportedly began to shift in the days that followed. And that's exactly where this story now stands, caught between Kate's quiet withdrawal, Harry's growing sense of permanent exclusion, and Anne's blunt intervention that insiders suggest may be the last real chance to stop this rift from hardening into something none of them can undo. What William decides next, according to sources close to the family, may not just determine his relationship with his brother, but whether Kate's decision to step back becomes the final word on this entire chapter. In the end, according to insiders close to the family, William didn't call Harry. He didn't send a long message trying to undo years of damage in one conversation. What he reportedly did instead was far quieter, and according to sources familiar with the matter, far more telling than any grand gesture could have been. He asked Anne to arrange a short private call, just the two brothers, no advisors listening in, no statement prepared in advance, nothing but the two of them and whatever was left to say after everything that had happened. Sources suggest the call itself was brief, reportedly less than 20 minutes, and according to those familiar with the conversation, it wasn't warm in the way people might hope for. There were no apologies exchanged in dramatic detail, no full reconciliation promised. But insiders close to the family suggest something did shift. Something small but real. A quiet acknowledgement from William that continuing to let the silence stretch indefinitely was no longer something he was willing to accept, regardless of how justified his anger may have felt over the years. It was reportedly Anne, according to sources close to the family, who said the one thing that seemed to finally cut through everything. In a private conversation with William beforehand, insiders claim she told him plainly, "You don't have to forgive him to still be his brother, but if you wait for certainty before you speak, you may run out of time to say anything at all." According to those familiar with the exchange, it wasn't delivered with anger or urgency, just a simple truth that reportedly stayed with William in the days that followed. Not long after, a short, carefully worded statement was reportedly issued through a family spokesperson, framed simply as an acknowledgement that Harry had spoken directly with members of the family during his recent visit, with no further details offered publicly. No mention of Kate's withdrawal, no mention of the tension that had built quietly for weeks. Just a calm, formal confirmation that contact had resumed in some limited form. According to insiders, that restraint was deliberate, a signal that whatever progress had been made was fragile enough that it needed to be protected from public scrutiny rather than paraded in front of it. But sources close to the family are clear that this isn't a clean, fully healed ending. Insiders suggest Kate's decision to step back from her role as quiet peacemaker hasn't reversed, and reportedly, she remains distant from the day-to-day tension between the brothers, choosing instead to protect her own peace after years of carrying more of this family's emotional weight than most people ever realized. According to those familiar with the situation, Harry understands this, and sources suggest he has reportedly accepted that the version of Kate who once quietly fought for him behind the scenes may not return, even if his relationship with William slowly finds its footing again. What remains uncertain, according to insiders, is whether this fragile, imperfect contact between the brothers holds once the immediate concern fades, or whether old patterns quietly creep back in the way they so often have before. Sources close to the family suggest the difference this time is that everyone involved, William, Harry, and even Kate from a careful distance, now understands exactly how close this family came to a silence that might never have been broken. So what do you think? Is this the start of something lasting between the brothers, or just a temporary crack in a wall that's been building for years? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.